Hello, and welcome to the Attract Your Soulmate show, a show where you learn how to attract true, long-lasting, sustaining love. And today we have with us the Blooms, Charlie and Linda. Welcome.
Hello.
Glad to be here with you.
And they know something about long-lasting, sustaining love. They have been in a committed partnership for 51 years. Wow. But they are also professional counselors specializing in relationships. They are seminar leaders, authors, and life partners, and they've been married since 1972, and they co-direct Bloomwork. They have co-written 4 books, including the best-selling book, 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married, Simple Lessons to Make Love Last, and of which they sold over 100,000 copies and have facilitated many workshops and relationship seminars throughout the USA and internationally since 1986. They have appeared on hundreds of radio and TV programs, and their work has been endorsed by big names like Harville Hendricks, Marianne Williamson, Gay and Kathleen Hendricks, and many others. Wow, it is such a joy to have you on my show, and what a gift to give to our audience of your abundant knowledge and experience over these years, not only in your own marriage, but in helping others achieve healthy and long-lasting love. So welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for inviting us.
Great to be here. Thanks.
So as you know, this show is called Attract Your Soulmate. And what I would like to know, I mean, you wrote this book about the 101 things you wish you would have known before getting married. What can you tell some of the people that are watching, or all of the people that are watching, that are single? Maybe they've lost a relationship, they've had a divorce, or they've never been married, and they really want this, which is the point of the show. What are some of the things that you can advise single people right now to start doing before they meet the one?
So thank you for the wonderful question. And we're both from the school of thought that instead of looking for the partner of your dreams, become the partner of your dreams. Do your own work. Keep your attention on yourself. If your skill set isn't really high quality, get your communication skill set up. Get your conflict management skill set higher. Get your negotiation skills. And by all means, identify your strong suits and give yourself credit for those, and identify your weak suits, and that's part of your work to do. If you're impatient, or if you're inflexible, then you do your own work, and magically you will attract a higher caliber of potential partners, and hopefully they'll be doing their own work too. And when both people have a good work ethic about relationship and don't just go in effect of the romantic myth that I will find my soulmate and it'll all just flow from there, that there's going to be some work involved to get ready, and there's going to be work involved while you're dating and getting to know each other. Mm-hmm. And it gets easier over time, but it requires some effort. It isn't just what happens all by itself. So we always emphasize, find somebody with good raw materials who will work with you about the things that relationship is for sure going to flush up for you.
Wow. Can you give some examples of, for example, I know a lot of our audience is a woman, are women who are highly successful in a lot of areas of their life. They probably have a very successful career path. They may even have children that they're raising beautifully. They have their fitness in check. They're reading self-help books. Maybe they're a little, in therapy or working on themselves, but they're just not, it's just not happening. What can you tell them to start with? Because, there's a lot of overwhelm with people saying, you included, me included, work on yourself first, become the one before thinking that you're going to attract the one. So what are some concrete things that people can start doing?
Well, I'll take a crack at that. Um, you may notice, and the viewers may notice that Linda and I have some personality differences. You may have noticed it already. Um, one of the things that you may notice um, when you get into a relationship is that there are some differences in your personalities. I don't know if you've noticed that, but um,
Yes, sir.
knowing not. Um, and I want to say a little bit about that because one of the biggest challenges I think that couples face is the inevitability, and I'll explain why it's inevitable in a moment, the inevitability of having to deal with somebody who in many ways has different perspectives, different ideas, different personality, in some ways even different values than you do. And so many couples come to us and they're just mystified as to, how did I end up with somebody so different? Why did I choose somebody so different? Why did we choose each other? And the reason that it's inevitable is because we are drawn towards people who tend to complement us. In other words, if we have a certain predisposition towards certain things, we're more likely to draw somebody whose view is complementary to ours because there's something in us that wants to expand and wants to grow and wants to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a seed that's within all of us. So and it's usually unconscious, but we usually find ourselves attracted to people who are in some ways, really kind of different. I might be very conservative about taking risks and I find myself with a big risk taker. Or, I might be very frugal about spending money and I find myself, married to a spendthrift.
Mm-hmm.
Or, there's a lot of, so those things are going to happen. It's just a matter of whether it's an extreme difference or whether it's, just small. So one of the things that we find ourselves working with couples a lot is just kind of normalizing the process that involves having to deal with differences.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not an if, it's a when those differences are going to show up. And it's a how. So how are we going to meet those breakdowns? They seem like breakdowns when they show up. So I think that when you understand that, then you're not shocked or surprised when a difference shows up. And you don't get quite so angry at your partner, or you don't feel guilty yourself because, oh, geez, why, that was stupid. I mean, why did I choose somebody like that? Or I need to get them to be different. But if you can bring an attitude of, okay, this is how it goes. This is what this game involves. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with her. It's just that, hey, that's how it is. Now, we may not hit that point until we've been in the first stage of relationship, which is known as infatuation, for a while.
Right.
And infatuation is great. The only problem is it's not reality. Other than that, it's wonderful. So when we get out of that and we move into the stage of disillusionment, in other words, we are realize that, gee, there were some illusions here about who this person is.
Right.
So when we get to that stage, we tend to, if we can appreciate that, we will not get so reactive and judgmental and critical, and it won't be as much of a problem. And hopefully, we will begin to become more curious about, okay, so what can we learn about how to deal with these differences in a way that allows us to really appreciate the common ground that we do have that originally attracted us to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's really profound, and I think possibly a little bit hard for some people to hear because you might change relationships so that you get rid of that, that those problems, but you bring yourself everywhere with you.
That's
everywhere,
the truth.
right? And so so I think there's kind of an epidemic of people and us, and I've been there, so I feel like I can say it, of wanting to change someone.
Absolutely.
And this is, you're speaking to that so
Absolutely.
beautifully, that it's just know that it's inevitable that that
Yes.
person is going to do and do things differently and have habits that are different than yours. And that
Yeah.
doesn't make them less valid. It doesn't make you less valid. You don't have to shrink
Yes.
into
Right.
it.
Yes.
But it's that, just that understanding that they get to be them and you get to be you, and there's always a way to have a middle ground. Now, the problem is in the people that I come across is that a lot of women especially are trying to change men before they're even with them. So, or they've been on one date and they say, oh, like I would want to change that, or I don't like that, but they don't even know the guy yet.
No, they don't.
Right.
No.
So can you address that a little bit? Because we have this, I feel like this widespread problem of women really, and not even being aware of it, but us really wanting to change men all the time.
There is a lot of romantic notion that my love is going to conquer all. I'm going to love this man into being who I want him to be. And it's just trouble from the start, having an attitude like that. She wouldn't like it if he came into the relationship wanting to do a makeover of her, fix her up a little bit here and a little bit there in the home improvement plan because I love you so much. We can adopt an attitude of more openness, more tolerance, more acceptance, more curiosity and wonder about who this person is, and hopefully they will be doing that for us too. And I think what you may be interfacing with these people who want to do the home improvement plan, they really have fear underneath. They may not be in touch with it. They may not be connected to it. It may be unconscious, but they think the relationship won't work unless I fix them up a little bit. And we have a teaching when we teach our workshops and when we do counseling with couples about the competing commitment. The commitment of I want a great relationship and I'm ready for it and I want it now. And there may be a fearful underneath of, I don't want to have to change myself to fit in with somebody else. I don't want to have to give up my freedom. I've established this wonderful life that I have. I want him to fit into the life that I've made, rather than realizing that if we're awake, we're both afraid about committing ourselves and giving our heart to each other. And we are going to have to make some sacrifices to make the relationship work. And that is scary, because if we give up too much of ourselves, we're in trouble. But if we don't stretch and sacrifice and give enough, we're in trouble. And that is a challenging balance to get to, and to search for the place that's afraid. If I were to open and give my heart to this person, if I was to give my commitment to this person, as they are, and they did the same for me, we think that that's a good basis to start a relationship. And when you go in trying to make the other person into the, romantic idea of who you think they ought to be, you're making trouble for yourself right from the beginning.
Right. Right. I love that. And I mean, we're generally speaking right now, the other person and they, and, focus on yourself. But can you speak to, because you're both here, can you speak to just kind of the male-female side, if we're talking about heterosexual relationships, which, is the dominating theme in this show, of course, always recognizing we're inclusive, but for the purpose of this show, heterosexual relationship, the dynamic between men and women. Can you speak to that a little bit so that we can understand where each is coming from?
Yeah. let me begin by just telling a little joke, although there's a lot of truth in it. When the saying goes that when a man and a woman get together, that the woman expects the man to change, and he doesn't. And the man expects the woman not to change.
Stay the same.
She
right?
does.
And she
So
does,
that's
you
not
just
a
said?
sexist book, because I mean, it sort of illuminates how on both sides we come in with expectations. And a woman's expectations generally tend to be more geared towards relationships than a man's. Culturally, in at least in this culture and in most cultures, I think women are geared towards and trained through the generations to be more relationship oriented, and which is a good thing. And men's conditioning tends, although it's changing, no question about it, it's shifting, but men tend to be more geared towards providing materially for the unit, for the family. And so women tend to value relationships in a way that is greater, and appreciate them more than men. It's not that men don't need them as much, we do, but we're just not as conscious of that. It doesn't live as vividly in our perception, in our vision, as it does for women. So a woman comes into a relationship and she's got to, I mean, when we got together decades ago, I mean, within a few minutes, Linda had the whole scenario planned out.
Good father material.
She had
seen the wedding.
She had inspected me, and she, asked the right questions. And I mean, she was really clear. To me, it was like literally the last thing on my mind. It was just, didn't even show up on the radar, and I'm not saying that no man care about that. We do, but it's just not as vivid for us in general. And so we're not looking for, well, how does she need to be? The other thing is that because women tend to be more oriented towards relationship, they're more attuned to where and how he's fitting into my picture, and where he needs to be tweaked a little bit for his own good, and how I can help him to become, the person that he was meant to be. And of course, I know who that is, and I know how to get him there. Well, this is a setup for disaster.
Totally.
Can you see that? But we can't.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. So.
Yeah. So you know the territory.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's treacherous.
Yeah. Now, my question to you would be, so what did you learn from that experience? Now,
it doesn't work. Do not try this at home.
Yeah. Do not try this at home.
No,
right.
no.
Yeah. Try something else at home.
Yeah.
There are a couple of other gender differences that we've noticed over the years of working with people, and there's actually been a lot of research about the differences between the fears that men have and the fears that the women have.
Oh.
Because men are big and have muscle mass, and they're often larger than the women. The bottom line sort of archetypal fears that the man could hurt her, physically harm her.
Yeah.
And so women often have an awareness of that, but they don't realize that the men don't have that as a bottom line fear, because they're bigger and stronger. They're fearing being shamed and humiliated. And if women understood this difference about how much fear men live in, but they can't admit to how fearful they are, they would be more careful with the men in their life and give them good feedback, particularly in areas of sexual performance and financial well-being,
Yes.
financial fitness. They would tread softly, knowing that most men have a big red shame button right in the middle of their chest, and inadvertently women can go banging into that. And when they want to make the man over into their dream of Prince Charming, they keep banging into that. And it's painful for the men.
I want to interrupt just for one moment and give a very brief example. We've had men in our seminars who have been Army Rangers and Green Berets and incredibly courageous out there on the literal battlefield.
Cops and firefighters.
I mean, amazing stuff. And yet those same men cringe in horror if they hear their partner say 4 little words. And those words are, "We need to talk."
Right. Right.
The same men who will literally run into a hail of bullets if they need to save their buddy, shrink in horror at those words. Mm-hmm. Because like Linda said, there's different ways in which courage can show up. And some men are incredibly courageous when it comes to physical challenges. But when it comes to emotional vulnerability, forget it. Mm-hmm. They just haven't exercised that muscle enough.
There's another male-female difference about communication that is an important one for women to be aware of. The average man speaks about 7,000 words a day. The average woman speaks about 20,000 words a day. We've got this switchboard in our brain that makes us high vocabulary, articulate about expressing ourselves, and the culture gives us permission to be in touch with our feelings and to talk feeling talk and rapport talk. And sometimes women get very frustrated with men because they aren't as articulate expressing themselves, and particularly in their feeling life. So that's the challenge for women, to step into the leadership role and to be patient and exquisite teachers in drawing the men out, because they have plenty of feelings inside. They're reticent about exposing them because of this shame and not doing a right thing. And so I think we need to be really wonderful teachers to draw the men out, to be able to have the emotional heart-to-heart connection that great relationships are made of.
Mm.
Wow, I totally agree. And that would be, just for our audience, I think you mean, you can correct me, but you mean like down the line when you're, I mean, yes, maybe even in dating on more surface level, but you don't want to, like on your first date, dive into a man's feelings, because that's also going to put him off. So I think Charlie and
gradually,
talking about
respectfully, over time.
Yeah.
Over time,
this is a gradual
as
process,
you deepen.
Right?
Yeah, sorry, that didn't get picked up because I was speaking. Charlie, can you just say that again?
No, I was just agreeing with you that it's not something you want to open the first date with.
Right.
You want to gradually introduce more intimate information about your feelings and your desires, and invite the other person out.
There are people in our field who encourage singles to keep their image up the first several months of the relationship. We're not from that school of thought. We're from the be authentic and real, right from the moment you put your profile up, tell the truth, put an age-appropriate picture, not something that's 10 years or more old.
Right.
And gradually, respectfully, but be real and authentic about what it is that you want and who you are and who you're looking for, to find out if you're a match sooner rather than later.
Right, because you're going to find out anyway.
And the sooner the better.
Yes.
The sooner the better. Some people don't find out until after the second child. Mm-hmm. That's not a good thing. If there are fundamental differences there that you're not aware of because one or both of you is trying so hard to be the person that you sense the other person wants you to be.
Yeah.
And then eventually the shadow will be revealed. It's not an if, it's a when. Mm-hmm. And when it is, if there hasn't been a level of real understanding between each other, it's going to be that's going to be really hard to integrate into the relationship.
Yeah.
So, we're not saying, oh, just jump in and show them, you put your worst foot forward, as soon as you meet. No, but it's a matter of gradually revealing, who you are to somebody.
So my last question then would be, on that note, how do you balance? Because I know this is really hard for a lot of people. For me, it certainly was hard. How do you balance giving someone a chance with knowing they're just not the right person for you? Like we can overdo it on giving someone a chance, or we could overdo it on saying no too early. How can you balance that?
There's really no formula for it. It's more of a felt sense. We sometimes find that people give up too easily. And the ones who are on that end of the spectrum, not the ones that hang in there way too long.
Right.
The ones who give up too easily, they're often still at effect of the romantic myth that if I find my soulmate, it's all going to flow. We're not going to argue. It's going to be so easy. And that person doesn't really exist.
Right.
Yes, there's going to be some work involved, and there's going to be misunderstandings, and there's going to be conflict, and there's going to be breakdowns, and there's going to be distortion. And we all, have sore spots, and we're going to bang into each other's sore spots. But that's all grist for the mill to learn about each other, to learn about ourselves. And so I'm fond of the whole idea of whoever it is that we're dating, see them as a lab partner. We're becoming a more loving human being, and we're practicing in the lab. And if we have that agreement with each other, then we use whatever the relationship flushes up. And it will help us. And there are people who have this romantic myth, not just in their 20s and 30s, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Right. People still think there's somebody out there, and it's all just going to be so perfect. And we try to blow up that myth whenever we can so that people see, I have to be eligible. I have to grow myself into an eligible partner. And I have to get a better honed bullshit detector to be able to see whether this person is really going to be in integrity or whether they're just going to talk the talk and not walk the walk, whether they're going to roll up their sleeves and work with me. And when you have two people who are committed to working with what the relationship throws up for them, that can be the makings of a great relationship. And it may take years, really, literally years. People don't like it when we say this. They want it just to take weeks or months. But it can take years to build that kind of solid trust that wonderful relationships, delightful relationships thrive in.
Right. And those foundational things of being in integrity, I love that word, integrity, are things that people that are dating can feel out. So does the other person follow through with what they say? Does the other person say what they mean and mean what they say, like in action, right? So,
right.
So you're saying it may take years, yes, but it's bit by bit, you're building upon
That's right.
moments together, and every time evaluating if that integrity and that person is still who they say they are.
It's full of tests and pop quizzes.
They are giving you information on a moment-to-moment basis throughout the relationship. Most people are not paying close enough attention and taking that information seriously. They're not recognizing the patterns. Oh, he promised to do this thing last week and he didn't do it then either. This may be a pattern. I need to watch this. And I also need to let him know, and this is one of the most overlooked aspects of relationships, is the need to give appropriate and useful feedback. I need to, and most people don't know that feedback doesn't mean giving advice or your opinion or judgment or suggestions or ideas. Feedback is simply letting the other person know how it affects you when they do or say something.
Yes.
That felt good when you said that. I was confused. I wasn't certain about what you were saying. I really was hurt when you said that. You know, to give feedback that lets the person know how their way of being, how their words, how their actions affected you, that's information that they need. The way they use that information, whether they take it seriously, whether they actually integrate that into their behavior and make some changes, not saying they have to do everything you want them to do, but whether or not you feel like they are assimilating your input is going to tell you a lot about what you can expect from them later on down the road.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. It's what they do with the information. And I love that you also said you don't get to just get your way all the time just because you spoke up.
No.
Oh, I spoke up and you're not doing it. But it's a constant evaluation, like you're both saying.
It's an ongoing, continual process.
Is my information being taken seriously? Are my feelings being heard, being discussed, being just even,
because if they're not being heard and this person is not responding respectfully to it, then it's not likely that further down the road that's going to be different unless something changes.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, such a great discussion. I wish I could talk to you for much longer. Great conversation. Thank you both so much. And I know that you have a gift for our audience. Can you share a little bit about what that is?
We have 3 free ebooks.
Yay.
Yes, one of them is about sexuality. One of them is about successful conflict management. And the other one is excerpted from our first book, 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married. But we picked the top 10.
Wow.
So we distilled it down to essence because people are busy. So when they sign up to be on our email list, they'll have that as an opportunity. If they go to our website, they'll see we got all kind of free things, blogs and things, video clips. We got videos on YouTube and Facebook Live. So people can get a lot of free information from Bloomwork.
Amazing. And you were also sharing with me that you provide online counseling, which is so helpful. A lot of counselors don't do that, and a lot of people don't think about counseling online. It's usually like on a couch in an office or something. So just for our audience, that's an option as well. So reach out to them. Right, Skype and Zoom. This is Zoom right here. So amazing. So thank you both so much for your amazing commitment to be here and your time. It has been such a pleasure to hang out with you. I wish we had more time. And I want to thank the audience as well for showing up, for watching, and we'll see you in another video, in another interview.
That'd be great.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.